The city glowed under the setting sun as the daily commute began. A young salaryman stood among the crowd, exhausted from the weight of his day. Every muscle in his body felt the strain of a relentless routine. The protagonist felt as if he were reaching his absolute limit. As the train arrived at the station, the peaceful silence vanished. The commute turned into a battlefield. Oh Hyunmin struggled against the aggressive crowd as everyone fought to exit the train. The young man felt a surge of irritation. He wondered where the youth of today had lost their manners. A sharp gaze scanned the surroundings. He searched for any small mercy in the suffocating crowd. Then, he spotted a miracle. An empty seat had appeared during the most crowded hour of the day. Oh Hyunmin seized the opportunity instantly. He claimed the spot before anyone else could react. Oh Hyunmin finally found a moment of peace. After the chaos of the commute, a simple seat felt like pure bliss. The man had always been a high achiever. Every step of his life followed a path of perfection. From his university days, the young man dominated his peers. His academic record was flawless, and his professional certifications came with ease. This brilliance paved the way to a prestigious career. He climbed the corporate ladder faster than anyone in the company's history. Success came with a price. Whenever the company faced an impossible obstacle, all eyes turned to the manager. The company had a specific person in mind for the toughest assignments. Oh Hyunmin was known as the man who could achieve the impossible, regardless of the cost. The manager had built a reputation for delivering results at any price. However, the relentless pressure had finally taken its toll. Exhaustion claimed him as his body simply shut down. Oh Hyunmin snapped awake in a state of complete confusion. He wondered if he had simply fallen asleep. The young man felt a surge of panic. He feared he had missed his stop on the way home. He looked around, but the surroundings were far from a train station. The protagonist found himself seated on a cold, jagged throne in a desolate cavern. A horde of monsters surrounded the man, cheering for their new leader. The monsters roared with wild excitement, celebrating their new master. Oh Hyunmin instinctively shielded himself, overwhelmed by the sudden chaos. The young man could only stare in disbelief at the surreal scene unfolding before him. One of the creatures was thrown back by an unseen force, yet the horde continued their frenzy. Pure shock paralyzed the protagonist as he struggled to process this nightmare. Oh Hyunmin had reached his absolute limit. Months of relentless work had pushed the young man to the brink of collapse. The exhaustion was so profound that he questioned his own existence. He wondered if he had finally succumbed to the pressure or lost his mind. The reality around him was far more terrifying than any corporate nightmare. The protagonist found himself trapped in a desolate place, surrounded by a screaming horde. The creatures swarmed the base of the platform, their chaotic energy filling the air. There was no escape from the madness. Paralyzed by shock, the salaryman could only tremble. Every instinct told him that this situation was impossible. Oh Hyunmin questioned his own sanity. After 3 months of relentless overtime, the young man wondered if he had died from exhaustion or simply gone insane. He analyzed the creatures before him. Every detail pointed toward a single impossible conclusion. The protagonist recognized them instantly. They were exactly like the monsters found in games or anime. A chilling realization settled in. This was no longer a corporate nightmare, but something far more surreal. The tension snapped when the creatures suddenly bowed. To his horror, the monsters began to address him as their lord. The goblins erupted in a frenzy of joy. Their long-awaited leader had finally arrived. Hyunmin watched in disbelief. The most shocking part was not their devotion, but the fact that these monsters spoke his own language fluently. Confusion clouded the young man's mind. He struggled to understand why these creatures were pledging their loyalty to him. Amidst the chaos, one small figure detached itself from the crowd. The tiny creature approached the protagonist with hesitant steps, carrying a humble offering. The small goblin approached with a humble gift. He urged his new master to eat. The creature's eyes sparkled with pure devotion. Every gesture was a plea for acceptance. Oh Hyunmin took the offering, though he remained deeply skeptical. The protagonist had never encountered such a strange fruit in his life. A sudden, unsettling sensation crept through his fingers. Something felt alive inside the skin. Oh Hyunmin felt a strange sensation. Something seemed to be pulsing beneath the skin of the fruit. The small creature watched with hopeful eyes, desperate for the offering to be accepted. The protagonist hesitated, fearing that refusing the gift would make him an enemy to the crowd. Hunger finally began to override his caution. His stomach betrayed him with a loud growl. He recalled the blandness of his last meal. Compared to that, this mysterious fruit seemed like a risk worth taking. Oh Hyunmin gave in to his hunger. He decided to take a risk and bit into the mysterious fruit. The sudden taste triggered an immediate reaction. The protagonist was completely taken aback. The surrounding goblins watched with bated breath. They waited in anticipation to see their leader's reaction. It was a revelation. Oh Hyunmin found the flavor far superior to anything he had ever tasted in his previous life. The hoarded creatures erupted in joy. Their new lord's acceptance sparked a wave of wild celebration. The goblins celebrated wildly, but Oh Hyunmin could only wonder why such a small action caused such a reaction. A sudden wave of instability hit him. The world began to blur. The young man collapsed to his knees, struggling to maintain his balance before the small creature. A strange dizziness clouded his mind. He felt his consciousness slipping away. Oh Hyunmin suspected the mysterious fruit was the cause. Just then, a digital interface flickered into existence. A digital interface materialized, assigning Oh Hyunmin the title of Lord over the Red Rock Valley. The young man knelt in silence, staring at the mysterious screen. Confusion clouded his mind as he struggled to comprehend the strange phenomenon. Oh Hyunmin examined the data, realizing he now held authority over a small population. A chilling discovery caught his attention. A countdown had begun for an impending territory war. Oh Hyunmin felt completely lost. The term the system used was entirely foreign to him. A sudden response flickered across the screen. The system was ready to provide an answer. The explanation was grim. The young man recoiled in shock as he realized the scale of the conflict he was facing. Disbelief washed over him. He couldn't wrap his head around the absurdity of the situation. He stared at the digital interface, questioning if the information provided actually solved his problem. The system offered a detailed history of the conflict. It was an invitation to understand the world. Oh Hyunmin had no interest in lessons. The young man dismissed the offer with irritation. Confusion took over. He struggled to reconcile his current surroundings with the memory of his morning commute. The wiki provided a chilling answer. The protagonist had been transported to a nightmare realm. However, the system withheld further details. His lack of status left him blind to his exact location. Oh Hyunmin struggled to process the truth. The realization that he had been summoned to a demonic realm felt like a nightmare. The young man looked around the desolate landscape. He felt completely isolated in this alien world. Frustration boiled over. Oh Hyunmin demanded a clearer explanation from the system. The response was cold and mechanical. The system refused to provide more data due to his insignificance. Desperation set in. The protagonist questioned how he could possibly return to his own world. The system's response was cold and repetitive. Oh Hyunmin was denied any information about returning home. The young man sat in stunned silence. The weight of his situation began to sink in. He searched for any sign of a mistake. Every detail felt too vivid to be a hallucination. Doubt clouded the protagonist's mind. He struggled to accept this new, impossible reality. Oh Hyunmin pinched his own skin. The sharp sting of pain confirmed his worst fears. Oh Hyunmin sought proof of his surroundings. The physical sensation confirmed that this nightmare was real. The young man felt a wave of disbelief. He could not comprehend how he had ended up in such a place. Slowly, the protagonist began to piece together the fragments of information. The logic of this world started to emerge. He realized the brutal nature of his new existence. It was a cycle of endless conflict over land and power. The truth was absolute. There was no escape from the war he was now forced to lead. Oh Hyunmin struggled to process the absurdity of the situation. A territory war sounded like a nightmare. The young man looked at the creatures before him. These were the subjects he was expected to lead. He scanned the crowd of monsters. Not a single one looked capable of fighting. The protagonist noticed the frail state of the creatures. They were far from the fearsome monsters of legend. Every detail confirmed his fears. His army was nothing more than a group of starving wretches. Oh Hyunmin looked at his subjects with disbelief. The creatures were so frail that the idea of a war seemed like a cruel joke. Desperate for a solution, the young man questioned Wiki. He couldn't fathom how victory was possible with such a pathetic force. The system's response was cold and absolute. Failure didn't just mean defeat, it meant certain death. The stakes became terrifyingly clear. Losing the territory war meant surrendering his very life to an enemy lord. A bitter realization sank in. No matter the world, the odds were always stacked against him. Oh Hyunmin felt a wave of bitterness. Whether in a fantasy world or the real one, the chaos remained the same. The protagonist recalled the endless struggle of his corporate life. He remembered the constant lack of funding. He had been forced to do everything alone, burdened by a complete absence of support. Time had always been his greatest enemy, slipping away while the pressure mounted. The young man remembered the crushing weight of deadlines that never seemed to end. Oh Hyunmin felt a crushing sense of familiarity. The pressure of an impossible deadline haunted him once again. The young man realized that this nightmare was no different from the corporate hell he had left behind. Seeking a way out, the protagonist addressed Wiki with a final, desperate inquiry. He wondered if victory and growth in this strange land could eventually lead him back to his own world. The system processed the request, preparing to deliver a definitive answer. A glimmer of hope emerged. The system confirmed that returning home was indeed possible. But that hope came with a grim warning. The odds of a new lord surviving their first territory war were abysmal. Oh Hyunmin stood frozen. The weight of his new reality began to sink in. He found himself stranded in a bizarre, unknown world, surrounded by creatures he couldn't comprehend. The situation felt desperate, yet the former manager refused to be intimidated. The small goblin felt completely lost. The concept of a territory war was entirely foreign to the creature. Confusion clouded the little one's mind. There was simply no understanding of the conflict at hand. Other goblins watched with similar uncertainty. The horde waited for a sign from their new leader. Oh Hyunmin looked upon the crowd. Despite the chaos, the man realized he still had a few days to act. He was a man of prestige and ambition. As a top manager destined for the executive level, the protagonist refused to let this world break him. Oh Hyunmin addressed the crowd with a deceptive softness. A grim announcement was about to be made. The corporate mindset took over. For the protagonist, success required sacrifice and relentless effort. The young man decided that the time for rest had ended. He demanded total commitment from his new subjects. Oh Hyunmin surveyed the desolate landscape. The geography of the canyon presented a significant tactical challenge. The manager analyzed the narrow passage. He began to calculate the best way to utilize the terrain to his advantage. Oh Hyunmin analyzed the narrow entrance. He knew the terrain would only get wider as they moved forward. The manager challenged his followers to find a way to victory. The creatures had no answer. Oh Hyunmin sought guidance from the system wiki, but the interface denied him the information. His territory level was simply too low. Frustrated by the limitation, the young man realized he could not rely on external help. He would have to rely on his own intellect. The protagonist demanded absolute focus. It was time to implement a strategy based on the fundamentals. Oh Hyunmin declared a desperate stand. The narrow passage would be defended at any cost. The protagonist prepared himself for the task ahead. He demanded a clear plan of action. Oh Hyunmin singled out a small group from the crowd. He needed immediate results. The young man pointed toward the nearby forest. He ordered the creatures to gather specific materials for his defense. The goblins hesitated, confused by the sudden command. They didn't understand the urgency of the situation. Oh Hyunmin lost his patience. The young man demanded immediate action from the hesitant creatures. The horde scrambled in fear. The sudden shift in tone forced the monsters into motion. The protagonist realized these beings required a firm hand. To him, they were nothing more than mindless recruits. Oh Hyunmin began assigning specific roles. He singled out a few to handle a particular task. The man pointed toward the heights. He ordered the collection of stones to fortify the cliffside. The creatures scrambled up the rock walls. They moved with a desperate urgency to please their new leader. Oh Hyunmin stood before the horde. The young man issued a stern command to secure the entrance. The monsters began to dig. Without tools, the creatures had no choice but to use their bare hands. The protagonist showed no mercy. He demanded absolute effort, regardless of the pain. Time passed under the light of 2 moons. The desolate landscape witnessed the birth of a deadly trap. The strategic defenses were finally in place. A formidable barrier now guarded the entrance. Sharp stakes waited in silence. The trap was set to impale anyone who dared enter. The path led deep into the darkness. Every detail had been calculated for maximum lethality. Oh Hyunmin addressed the exhausted horde. The protagonist acknowledged their toil with a cold detachment. The goblins were broken and battered. Their physical state was a testament to the brutal demands of their leader. A new system trait was activated. This ability would push the residents beyond their limits by boosting efficiency and endurance. Oh Hyunmin recognized the value of this advantage. Every single second had to be utilized to ensure their survival. The protagonist called his exhausted subjects to attention. He demanded their full focus for the next phase of the plan. Despite the progress made since noon, the young man knew they were still vulnerable. The true challenge was only beginning. Oh Hyunmin questioned his followers about the nature of their toil. He was about to teach them the brutal reality of hard work. Oh Hyunmin viewed this grueling labor as a strategic advantage. He was preparing the battlefield while their enemies remained unaware. The young man warned his subjects that the path ahead would be brutal. Only through extreme sacrifice could they survive the coming war. With a commanding presence, the protagonist demanded the full attention of his troops. He pushed them to find a new level of intensity. The goblins responded to the call. Their exhaustion was replaced by a sudden, fierce energy. A wave of fervor swept through the horde. The creatures roared in unison, fully embracing the brutal nature of overtime. The creatures roared in unison. A sudden, fierce energy surged through the horde. Oh Hyunmin wasted no time. The protagonist commanded his troops to arm themselves and prepare for battle. The goblins scrambled in a chaotic frenzy. Panic and excitement collided as they rushed to obey. The young man watched the scene unfold. The sheer lack of discipline was apparent. Oh Hyunmin sighed in disappointment. The state of his army was a complete disaster. Oh Hyunmin surveyed the troops with disbelief. The available weaponry was pathetic and utterly insufficient for a real war. The protagonist realized that raw power was not an option. He decided to rely on his intellect to overcome the odds. Since the enemy shared the same weaknesses, the young man began to analyze the battlefield like a game of chess. He concluded that victory depended on execution rather than equipment. Strategy would be the deciding factor. A memory of a respected mentor surfaced. The man recalled a vital lesson about the timeless wisdom of military science. Oh Hyunmin recalled the timeless principles of infantry warfare. A disciplined line was the only way to ensure victory. The young man knew that even a basic imitation of this strategy could turn the tide of battle. He ordered his troops to align. The goblins were completely bewildered. Their lack of discipline became immediately apparent to the protagonist. Realizing they had no concept of order, Oh Hyunmin decided to guide them personally. He designated one creature as the anchor. The manager began positioning the monsters one by one. He meticulously built the foundation of the line. Oh Hyunmin took charge, physically guiding the creatures into position. Precision was the only way to survive. The protagonist established a strict rule for spacing. He wanted the line to be an unbreakable wall. Every detail mattered. The young man demonstrated the proper grip to maximize their limited reach. He drilled the basic commands into their minds. Discipline had to replace their chaotic instincts. With a thunderous command, Oh Hyunmin put their training to the test. The order to move was given. A goblin fell behind, breaking the formation. Discipline was non-negotiable. The creature struggled to recover, trembling under the pressure. Oh Hyunmin showed no mercy. He demanded immediate obedience. The protagonist insisted on perfection. The line had to be flawless. Driven by fear and authority, the monsters scrambled back into position. Oh Hyunmin recalled a harsh lesson from his time in the corporate world. He believed that relentless repetition could overcome any lack of natural gift. The young man pushed his subjects to their absolute limits with unwavering demands. The protagonist noticed a shift in the creature's morale. Fear and exhaustion finally took hold as the monsters began to crumble under the pressure. The monster recognized that look of utter defeat. Oh Hyunmin saw a reflection of the corporate world in the creature's eyes. It was the same despair felt by a rookie employee facing constant failure. The protagonist knew there was no room for pity. Stopping now would mean total failure for everyone. Oh Hyunmin demanded absolute resilience. Survival required a will that refused to break. The order echoed relentlessly. Only through endless repetition would they find strength. The cycle of exhaustion continued without mercy. The goblins struggled to maintain their form, their bodies trembling under the weight of the task. Every muscle strained as the creatures fought against total collapse. Oh Hyunmin showed no sign of softening. The protagonist demanded they rise, treating their weakness as a lack of commitment. To ensure absolute discipline, the young man imposed a harsh penalty for every single mistake. Oh Hyunmin looked on with a cold, distant gaze. Someone was trying to get his attention. A small goblin approached the protagonist. The creature trembled with every step. The young man questioned the subject. He wanted to know the reason for this interruption. Fear gripped the small creature. It could barely find the strength to speak. In a desperate plea, the goblin offered a horrific solution. It begged to be sacrificed as food to save the others. Oh Hyunmin looked on with a cold, distant gaze. The protagonist listened as a grim tradition was revealed. A horrific bargain had been struck in the past to avoid bloodshed. The goblins trembled in fear. The weight of their desperation was palpable. A small hand reached out in a gesture of absolute submission. The small goblin offered itself as a sacrifice. It believed that giving up its life was the only way to ensure the survival of its lord. The small goblin smiled with a heartbreaking purity. To the creature, death was a small price to pay for the safety of its leader. The rest of the tribe watched in silence. They had long accepted a cycle of cowardice and sacrifice. Oh Hyunmin looked down at the offering. The sight of such blind devotion only deepened his disdain. A cold sigh escaped the young man. He felt a mixture of pity and irritation at their broken spirits. The protagonist confronted the crowd. He questioned the morality of a survival bought with the blood of their own children. Oh Hyunmin confronted the goblins. He questioned the morality of a survival bought with the blood of their own children. The protagonist warned them. He argued that a life spent giving up everything would eventually leave them with nothing. A new resolve filled the young man. He declared that they would no longer submit, but fight with every ounce of their strength. The goblins listened in shock. Oh Hyunmin vowed that not a single inch of their land or a single child would be surrendered. The leader's voice boomed with authority. He swore that they would never let anyone take anything from them ever again. The goblins roared in unison. A new fire of defiance burned within the tribe. The system issued a cold warning. The time for preparation had vanished. The deadline arrived. The conflict for survival officially began. A piercing cry echoed through the wasteland. The enemy had arrived. The first step of the invasion hit the ground. The battle for the territory was finally here. The Black Hill goblins had arrived. The enemy's presence filled the air with malice. Oh Hyunmin stood firm before his troops. The time for hesitation had ended. The protagonist issued a cold command. He demanded total readiness from his subjects. The goblins obeyed instantly. They gripped their weapons with a newfound discipline. A wall of spears rose in unison. The defense was set, and the trap was ready to spring. Oh Hyunmin felt confident. Every detail had been planned, and the defense was finally complete. The goblins responded with feral intensity. They were no longer mere laborers, but a weapon. A cold smile played on the protagonist's lips. He was ready to welcome his guests. The enemy approached the precipice. They had no idea what awaited them in the depths. From the shadows of the cave, the army stood in perfect formation. The trap was set. The enemy horde pressed forward, blinded by their own aggression. The goblins trembled, fighting the urge to strike prematurely. Oh Hyunmin demanded absolute discipline. The trap required perfect timing. The invaders reached the very edge of the precipice. The protagonist waited in silence. One more step was all it would take. The Black Hill goblins surged forward, driven by a blind and reckless aggression. The invading force crowded into the narrow passage, unaware of the danger ahead. Panic erupted as the lead monsters realized they had reached the edge of a pit. Chaos took hold of the horde. The momentum of the crowd pushed the front line over the brink. The invaders tumbled into the abyss, crushed by the weight of their own mindless advance. Oh Hyunmin looked upon the fallen with disdain. Their weakness reminded him of how pathetic his own subjects once were. A cold confidence took hold of the man. He knew the outcome of this clash was already decided. Panic surged through the enemy ranks. The Black Hill goblins scrambled over one another in a desperate attempt to escape. The protagonist watched their struggle with a cruel smile. He found their desperation amusing as they fell right into his hands. Terror gripped the invaders. They were trapped by their own chaos, unable to find a way out. Oh Hyunmin looked upon the invaders with disdain. Their weakness reminded the young man of how pathetic his own subjects once were. A cold calculation took hold of the protagonist. He realized the enemy had pushed too far. The trap had snapped shut. Once the majority had crossed, any hope of retreat vanished. A cruel resolve filled Oh Hyunmin. He intended to make the invaders pay dearly for their arrogance. The manager stepped forward to oversee the slaughter. The time for mercy had long since passed. Oh Hyunmin decided that the invaders would pay for their arrogance. There was no turning back for them now. The protagonist gave the signal to begin the massacre. The goblins prepared their makeshift weapons. The order was clear. The young man demanded a relentless barrage to crush the enemy. A massive stone descended with lethal force. The impact was instantaneous and brutal. The goblins worked in unison, raining down destruction upon the trapped invaders. The Black Hill goblins rushed forward, driven by a desperate aggression. Chaos erupted as the invaders struggled to maintain their formation. Panic set in among the ranks of the enemy. A heavy projectile struck with devastating precision, crushing everything in its path. The attack was merciless, leaving the fallen with no chance of survival. A lethal blow crushed the enemy instantly. The assault left no room for error. Oh Hyunmin observed the carnage. The invaders were trapped, unable to retreat or break through the line. Despair took hold of the survivors. The once proud warriors were now broken and defeated. A few remaining Black Hill goblins attempted a final, desperate surge. The protagonist looked upon them with cold indifference. To him, their numbers were now irrelevant. Oh Hyunmin commanded his troops to prepare for the strike. The time for hesitation had ended. The protagonist ordered a relentless advance. He pushed his soldiers forward to crush the enemy. Every movement was calculated. Oh Hyunmin demanded absolute focus and precision from his line. The young man insisted on a perfect formation. He refused to give the invaders any chance to recover. The allied spears pierced through the enemy ranks. The Black Hill goblins were systematically eliminated. The Black Hill goblins attempted a desperate charge. They fought with a feral intensity, hoping to break through. Panic began to set in among the invaders. Their aggressive advance was quickly turning into a struggle for survival. The ground beneath them became a hazard. One wrong step was all it took to lose balance. Chaos erupted as the enemy lines crumbled. The attackers fell over one another in a frantic scramble. The formation collapsed completely. The once fierce warriors were now nothing more than prey. The enemy forces were trapped in a lethal bottleneck. Chaos reigned as they were crushed by the sheer weight of the assault. Oh Hyunmin watched the carnage with a cold satisfaction. Everything was unfolding exactly as he had envisioned. The invaders were caught in a deadly vice. Between the raining boulders and the wall of spears, the momentum had shifted entirely. The grueling labor of the previous night had paid off. The strategic fortifications were now turning the tide of the entire battlefield. The protagonist realized the victory was within reach. At this rate, the opposition stood no chance of survival. A powerful warrior stepped forward, wielding a heavy club with lethal intent. The enemy goblin fell back in terror, completely overwhelmed by the sudden assault. A guttural breath escaped the warrior as he prepared for the final blow. Pure rage ignited within the fighter, his eyes glowing with an unstoppable intensity. Oh Hyunmin watched as the monstrous force surged toward him, radiating an aura of absolute destruction. The hobgoblin crouched low, radiating a menacing energy. With a sudden burst of power, the creature leaped forward. The ground shattered beneath the warrior's feet from the sheer force of the movement. The massive fighter loomed over the scene, gripping his weapon with lethal intent. The Lord of Black Hill looked down upon Oh Hyunmin with utter contempt, questioning if such an unimpressive man could truly be the new leader. Oh Hyunmin remained unfazed, claiming he had recognized the enemy leader immediately. The Lord of Black Hill grew impatient, dismissing the conversation as nonsense. The Hobgoblin Lord demanded a direct confrontation, ordering the subordinates to stay out of the way. Oh Hyunmin was momentarily stunned by the creature's arrogance. The young man processed the challenge, his expression shifting as he contemplated the duel. Oh Hyunmin questioned the terms of the duel. A direct confrontation was now inevitable. The Lord of Black Hill mocked the young man. The monster sought to break his spirit with intimidation. Despite the pressure, the protagonist remained calm. He refused to let the creature's arrogance rattle him. The Hobgoblin Lord launched a sudden, violent strike. Speed and power collided in an instant. The monster ridiculed the perceived weakness of his opponent. He believed the battle was already decided. The Lord of Black Hill felt a surge of contempt. The monster wondered if he had overestimated the resolve of his opponent. Arrogance blinded the creature. The Hobgoblin Lord promised a swift death to the man he viewed as a pitiful coward. A sudden impact shattered the silence. A massive boulder crashed down with devastating force. Shock replaced the monster's confidence. The Lord of Black Hill roared in fury, outraged that someone dared to interfere with his sacred duel. The attack had been only the beginning. A rain of stones descended from the sky, trapping the creature in a relentless barrage. The crushing weight of the boulders left no room for escape. The enemy was utterly overwhelmed. Oh Hyunmin watched the carnage with cold indifference. To the protagonist, the result was already decided. He saw no reason to risk himself in a direct confrontation. Efficiency was the only thing that mattered. A system notification confirmed the outcome. The territory now belonged to him. A smirk played on the young man's lips. Victory had tasted sweet. Oh Hyunmin praised his subordinates for their performance. The battle was over, and victory was finally theirs. Amidst the ruins, a defeated enemy stared back in shock. The crushing defeat had left the survivor broken. The victorious goblins erupted in cheers. Their loyalty to the protagonist grew as they celebrated the triumph. One survivor struggled to rise, overwhelmed by despair. The weight of failure was heavier than the debris. A sudden strike ended the creature's hope. Mercy was not an option for those who stood in the way. A bloodthirsty goblin spotted a survivor and ordered an immediate execution. The creature prepared to strike, unaware that Oh Hyunmin was watching. The protagonist stepped in, demanding that the attack stop. The warriors froze in confusion, caught off guard by the sudden command. A wave of bewilderment swept through the group as they questioned the decision. Oh Hyunmin questioned the sudden urge to execute the prisoner. The bloodthirsty goblin argued that mercy was a risk, recalling the torment they had suffered. The protagonist shut down the argument with a sharp command. To Oh Hyunmin, a dead enemy held no value. He viewed the survivor not as a threat, but as a strategic asset to be utilized. The dust settled over the desolate landscape. The conflict had reached its end. Oh Hyunmin stood above the remnants of the defeated. The spoils of war lay before him. The young man began to calculate the results. Every detail of the victory had to be analyzed. The system responded to the triumph. The territory had officially evolved. A massive influx of new subjects was recorded. The protagonists' influence grew stronger than ever. The spoils of war were gathered. Essential supplies had been secured to sustain the growing colony. Victory brought more than just loot. The territory evolved, granting the army new tactical advantages and unlocking deeper secrets of the realm. Oh Hyunmin surveyed the situation. The sudden increase in population created a daunting logistical challenge. The numbers were staggering. The young man realized the scale of the crisis he now faced. Despair loomed over the victory. Without a sustainable food source, the entire population was headed toward starvation. The system provided a grim reality. Farming was an impossibility on the 12th floor. Oh Hyunmin paused. Something didn't add up. The young man held up a piece of evidence. A contradiction had appeared in the form of a simple fruit. He questioned the prisoners. If agriculture was impossible, the origin of the food remained a mystery. The captured goblin trembled. Fear took hold as the protagonist demanded the truth. Oh Hyunmin used the threat of pain to break the prisoner's will. The Black Hill survivor quickly caved, revealing a secret location. Desperate to avoid torture, the goblin confessed to visiting a hidden forest under the cover of darkness. The protagonist had heard enough. He silenced the frantic creature with a sharp command. Oh Hyunmin looked at the fruit in his hand. The mystery of the food source was finally solved. With a clear objective, the young man selected 3 subordinates to carry out his orders. The chosen subordinates obeyed instantly. Oh Hyunmin's authority was absolute. The young man issued a clear objective. A reconnaissance mission in the forest had to be completed before dawn. However, the remaining prisoners reacted with visible dread. A wave of panic swept through the captives. Oh Hyunmin noticed their hesitation. He questioned the sudden change in atmosphere. One of the goblins trembled as he spoke. A terrifying entity guarded the forest, and those who encountered it never returned. The prisoner trembled in fear. He warned that some things were better left unseen. Oh Hyunmin remained unfazed. The warning only fueled the young man's curiosity. Desperation set in for the captive. He hoped his cooperation would spare him from pain. The other prisoners erupted in a chorus of hatred. Their resentment boiled over into violent threats. The noise did not bother the protagonist. He turned to face them with a cold, calculating gaze. Oh Hyunmin questioned the nature of their success. He wanted his followers to reflect on the truth. The young man dismissed the idea that skill or planning had secured the win. He attributed the victory to mere luck. A warning followed, as fortune rarely struck twice. The protagonist brushed aside the notion of torture. He believed their time was better spent on productivity. With a sudden display of power, Oh Hyunmin crushed the object in his hand. It was a clear signal to get to work. The forest remained silent, hiding secrets that could prove fatal to the unwary. A group of goblins crept through the undergrowth, their movements cautious and tense. An unexpected visitor landed on one of the scouts. The intrusion went unnoticed for a fleeting moment. Panic flared as the creature's presence was finally felt. The goblin recoiled in sudden alarm. The leader quickly silenced his subordinate. He reminded the group of the strict orders they had received. Oh Hyunmin's warning echoed in their minds. The order was absolute. Observe everything, but touch nothing. The goblin scouts crept forward, their every movement heavy with tension. A sudden, frantic scramble broke their formation as panic seized one of the scouts. The group leader quickly regained control, directing the others toward a specific target. They had found it. Strange, bulbous fruits hung from the branches, tempting and mysterious. The goblin scout leader kept a sharp eye on the surroundings. Every detail mattered. The mysterious fruits hung heavy from the branches. They were a tempting discovery in the depths of the forest. Suddenly, a hand clamped over a scout's mouth. Silence was the only way to survive. The scouts looked up in horror. The tree was draped in thick, suffocating webs. Cold sweat poured down the leader's face. He realized they were no longer the hunters. Fear gripped the goblin scout leader. He sensed something wrong. The scouts paused, staring at the gruesome remains scattered across the ground. The leader reached out to examine the evidence. A sticky, dark substance clung to his fingers. It was a sign of a predator. Horror dawned on the young man as he realized what they had stumbled upon. The goblin scout leader tried to warn his comrades. A sudden sense of dread filled the air. Panic surged through the group as they realized they were no longer alone. The leader froze. Something unseen had already closed the distance. Terror struck the scouts as a lethal presence emerged from the shadows. A swift, invisible strike tore through the silence. The predator had claimed its first victim. The goblin felt a sudden, sharp sting. Shock washed over him as he realized he had been hit. Panic took hold of the creature. He clutched his face, unable to comprehend the speed of the attack. The goblin stared at the blood on his hand. The reality of the situation began to sink in. He tried to alert the others. Desperation drove him to warn his comrades of the danger. Confusion clouded the mind of the other goblin. He didn't understand why the leader was so terrified. Panic surged through the creature. A desperate warning was the only thing left to give. Oh Hyunmin remained composed, facing the crowd of subordinates with an air of authority. The young man sought to confirm the geography of the surrounding lands. The goblins looked on in confusion, struggling to grasp the concept of the distant terrain. A confirmation was finally reached. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to fit together. Oh Hyunmin felt the weight of the task. Gathering intelligence was proving to be a grueling process. The map revealed the surrounding geography. A vast desert lay beyond the forest and hills. The young man found the result satisfactory. This data provided the strategic edge he required. Suddenly, the silence was broken. Terrified subordinates rushed back toward their leader. Oh Hyunmin was taken aback by their frantic state. The scouts had returned in a state of complete collapse. Oh Hyunmin demanded an explanation. The missing scout's absence was a glaring failure. The survivors trembled in fear. They described a terrifying abduction that happened in an instant. The young man was displeased. He had given strict orders to prioritize caution over curiosity. A strange clue remained. Oh Hyunmin discovered a mysterious, sticky thread clinging to the creature. The discovery deepened the mystery. This evidence pointed to a predator far more dangerous than they had imagined. Oh Hyunmin stood before the trembling survivors. The loss of a scout was an unacceptable failure. The young man remained silent, his mind racing to process the horror the goblins had described. He analyzed the scene. The evidence was clear, from the webs in the canopy to the marks on the soil. Oh Hyunmin examined the residue. The strength of the fiber revealed the nature of the enemy. The conclusion was terrifying. They were not facing a beast, but a lethal predator. The risks were staggering. Between the massive arachnids and the suffocating terrain, the odds of a total massacre were high. Oh Hyunmin weighed the cost of failure. A mistake here meant losing both their food supply and his remaining soldiers. The protagonist refused to be deterred by the danger. He had never sought the easy path in his life. With a firm decision made, the young man ordered his troops to prepare for the journey. He stepped forward with resolve, ready to lead his army into the heart of the forest. The forest was a death trap. Massive webs clung to every branch, signaling the presence of predators of a dangerous size. A sudden, brutal strike tore through the silence. The creature's attack was precise and lethal. The predator emerged from the shadows, its multiple eyes glowing with a hunger for prey. It loomed over the scene, a monstrous entity that dominated the dense undergrowth. Oh Hyunmin stood his ground, surrounded by his trembling subordinates. The danger was real, but the young man remained unfazed. The goblin scouts waited in anticipation. They had been deployed to uncover the secrets of the woods. Oh Hyunmin watched the perimeter with a cold gaze. The young man remained composed despite the oppressive atmosphere. Patience was wearing thin. Every second spent in silence felt like a wasted opportunity. The protagonist grew frustrated. He had expected the forest predators to reveal themselves, but the shadows remained empty. Hunger and tension began to fray the nerves of the subordinates. The scouts struggled to maintain their discipline. Tension mounted among the scouts as hunger began to take its toll. Oh Hyunmin realized that staying still was no longer a viable option. The protagonist grew irritated by the sticky traps hindering their movement. While the young man struggled with the webs, a curious subordinate watched from the shadows. The goblin's confusion only added to the frustration of the moment. Oh Hyunmin had no patience for recklessness. He sternly reprimanded the subordinate for trying to act alone. The young man demanded absolute discipline. He ordered the scouts to stay under control to avoid any accidents. Suddenly, a flash of light tore through the dark sky. Oh Hyunmin froze as the sudden thunder shook the air. Heavy rain began to pour, drenching everything in an instant. Oh Hyunmin looked up in disbelief. The sudden change in weather caught him completely off guard. The young man quickly took charge. He ordered the scouts to seek immediate shelter within the cave. Frustration washed over him. He had not expected the demon realm to be plagued by such violent storms. A strange sensation suddenly gripped the protagonist. Something felt off. Oh Hyunmin paused, his instincts alerting him to a hidden danger in the rain. Oh Hyunmin examined the strange substance. He needed to understand what he was dealing with. The material proved useless. It didn't offer the solution the young man hoped for. Disappointment set in. The protagonist realized the situation was worse than he had anticipated. He turned his attention to the group. Oh Hyunmin wanted to ensure everyone had reached safety. The goblins confirmed the plan. They would remain sheltered until the storm passed. The goblins huddled together, their uneasy murmurs filling the silence of the cave. A trembling scout approached Oh Hyunmin to deliver some unsettling news. Panic surged through the small creature as he realized the gravity of the situation. Oh Hyunmin questioned the report, hoping it was merely a mistake. The young man demanded a specific name, trying to make sense of the sudden disappearance. The remaining scouts trembled in fear. Their frantic whispers revealed a troubling gap in their ranks. Oh Hyunmin realized the truth. Runt had impulsively wandered off into the dangerous wild alone. Panic gripped the small creatures. They feared the young goblin was walking straight into a death trap. The protagonist tried to steady his thoughts. He considered sending a search party to retrieve the missing scout. However, Oh Hyunmin hesitated. He knew the goblins lacked the judgment to avoid the lethal webs lurking in the forest. The rain fell relentlessly, masking the dangers that lurked just beyond the shelter. A heavy silence settled over the group as they stared into the gloom. Oh Hyunmin remained composed, convinced that the missing scout had not traveled far. The young man gripped his weapon, preparing himself for what lay ahead. Despite the protests of his subordinates, the protagonist stepped out into the storm. Oh Hyunmin left no room for argument. He commanded his subordinates to stay behind for their own safety. The young man stepped out into the mud, leaving the security of the shelter. He ventured deeper into the oppressive woods, where danger could emerge from any shadow. Despite the terror of the unknown, the protagonist tightened his grip on his weapon. Oh Hyunmin believed that true leadership meant facing the greatest risks alone. Oh Hyunmin stopped abruptly. Something had caught his attention. The young man spotted a trail of footprints leading deeper into the woods. He questioned if the missing scout had headed in that direction. Suddenly, a violent bolt of lightning tore through the sky. The sudden flash left the protagonist shaken and on high alert. Oh Hyunmin froze as a sudden noise echoed through the woods. Something was moving fast in the darkness. The young man tightened his grip on his weapon, his senses heightened by the unexpected disturbance. A frantic figure burst through the underbrush, fleeing in total desperation. It was Runt. The small goblin was terrified, sobbing as he recognized his leader. The poor creature scrambled across the ground, plagued by a fire that refused to go out. Runt lunged at Oh Hyunmin in a state of pure panic. The small goblin was barely conscious of his actions. The young man reacted quickly. He tried to stabilize the creature and assess the damage. Agony took over as the mysterious flames continued to burn. The goblin's screams echoed through the forest. Oh Hyunmin attempted to soothe the frantic subordinate. He needed the creature to stay still to help. With a firm grip, the protagonist forced the goblin to the ground. Every second counted in the fight against the heat. Oh Hyunmin reacted instantly to the chaotic surge. He struggled to keep the panicked creature under control. The young man demanded an explanation. He couldn't understand why the scout had risked everything by wandering off alone. Runt broke down in tears. The small goblin confessed that his recklessness was born from a desire to help his younger brother. A heartbreaking memory surfaced. The little one had suffered from constant hunger, dreaming only of simple fruits. Oh Hyunmin remained stern despite the tragedy. He pointed out the absurdity of the risk, especially with the mysterious fire consuming the goblin's body. Oh Hyunmin reflected on his time spent in the demon realm. Something felt fundamentally wrong. The young man questioned his own memories. A basic element of nature seemed entirely absent from this world. Confused and unsettled, the protagonist stepped back. He tried to process the anomaly before him. Oh Hyunmin gritted his teeth in frustration. The situation defied everything he knew about this land. He cast his gaze toward the flickering embers. The mysterious flames continued to burn, marking a dangerous deviation from the norm. The goblin scouts were torn between their fear of punishment and their loyalty. Their leader's safety outweighed the risk of a scolding. A sudden, unsettling noise echoed through the trees. The sound chilled the scouts to their core. Panic began to spread among the group. Despite the suffocating darkness and their growing terror, they refused to turn back. The small troop pushed forward cautiously. Every step into the unknown felt like a gamble. Suddenly, a flicker of light pierced the gloom. The creatures stopped in their tracks, mesmerized by a sight they had never seen before. The goblin scouts were gripped by a sudden primal terror. One of the creatures trembled, completely overwhelmed by the intensity of the moment. A brilliant light erupted, cutting through the oppressive gloom of the forest. The young goblin could barely process the sight, his mind racing in disbelief. Paralyzed by shock, the scouts collapsed to their knees. The goblins were struck by a sudden, overwhelming sense of wonder. A brilliant flame pierced the oppressive darkness, revealing a sight the creatures had never encountered. To the scouts, Oh Hyunmin appeared like a divine being descending upon the demon realm. The young man stood calm and composed, his presence commanding the space. His steady gaze held a quiet authority that left the subordinates in awe. Oh Hyunmin questioned the scouts' presence. He had given them strict orders to wait. The young man realized this unexpected encounter could actually be useful. He reached for his clothing, preparing to reveal something. A sudden spark ignited, turning into a brilliant flame. The creatures reacted with primal terror as the fire flared up before them. Oh Hyunmin felt satisfied. The small creature had proven its worth by providing the flame. The young man decided that a mere description was not enough. The little ally deserved a proper identity. He bestowed the name Kim Prometheus upon the creature, shortening it to Kim Pro for convenience. This name was a reward for the gift of fire. Oh Hyunmin showed a rare moment of affection toward the small being. The act of naming triggered a mysterious system notification. A hidden power had been activated for the first time. Kim Prometheus looked up in confusion. A strange sensation washed over the small creature. The little goblin felt a sudden shift in his very being. Something within him was changing. A surge of energy lifted the small being off the ground. The power of the name began to take hold. Oh Hyunmin watched the spectacle with surprise. He called out to the creature, wondering what he had unleashed. The two stared at each other in silence. The bond between the master and the named servant had been forged. Kim Prometheus looked up, acknowledging the name he had been given. Oh Hyunmin observed the situation with curiosity, wondering about the nature of the change. The other goblins erupted in excitement, shouting the new name of their companion. A sharp glint appeared in the young man's eyes as he processed the shift in power. Oh Hyunmin remained composed, reminding the creatures to stay focused. Oh Hyunmin commanded the attention of the group. It was time to organize the creatures. A confident smile played on the young man's lips. The tide of the situation had finally turned. The flame flared brightly, cutting through the darkness. He stepped forward firmly, leaving no room for doubt. With the goblins following his lead, the protagonist began his march. Oh Hyunmin scanned the surroundings with a sharp, focused gaze. The young man led the way through the dense, web-covered forest. He used the torch to illuminate the grim discoveries hidden in the shadows. The sight filled the small goblin with absolute terror. Oh Hyunmin realized that the missing scouts had fallen into a deadly trap. Oh Hyunmin discovered the grim fate of the missing scouts. The organic cocoons confirmed their worst fears. The young man remained calm, analyzing the situation while the others trembled. Suddenly, a massive predator descended from the canopy. The goblins cried out in panic. Oh Hyunmin reacted instantly. He used the fire to drive the beast back. The creature shrieked in pain. The flames had successfully repelled the ambush. Oh Hyunmin confirmed his suspicions. The creatures were cold-blooded and terrified of fire. A drastic solution crossed the young man's mind. Burning the entire forest would eliminate the threat. However, the protagonist hesitated. Such a victory would leave them without any food. A sudden realization struck him. The predators had already surrounded them. A lethal strike descended from above. The predator attacked with blinding speed. Oh Hyunmin stood his ground as the ambush unfolded. The group was completely encircled. The young man reacted instinctively. He used the flame to drive the beast back. Panic seized the subordinates. The sight of the monsters broke their spirit. Chaos erupted among the ranks. The goblins looked to their leader in desperation. Oh Hyunmin knew his subordinates were paralyzed by fear. He realized he had to take the lead. The young man lunged forward. He charged directly at the beast to break the deadlock. Using the flame as a weapon, the protagonist unleashed a searing strike. The monster was caught off guard. The fire struck its weak point with precision. With one decisive blow, Oh Hyunmin crushed the predator. The threat was eliminated. Oh Hyunmin struck down the beast with absolute precision. The predator stood no chance against his decisive attack. The goblins watched in sheer disbelief. They had never seen such a feat of strength from their leader. Hope ignited within the group. The realization that the monsters feared fire changed everything. Oh Hyunmin wasted no time. He commanded his troops to cast aside their fear and fight back. Inspired by the protagonist, the warriors surged forward. The tide of the battle had finally turned. Kim Prometheus rushed forward with a desperate cry. The small goblin fought to overcome his terror. The scout group rallied behind him. They gripped their weapons, determined to push through the darkness. The warriors charged into the heart of the webs. Fire became their only shield against the encroaching shadows. A sudden strike ignited the air. The young goblin used the flames to drive back the lurking predators. The battle intensified as the scouts fought for their lives. Every thrust of the spear was a struggle for survival. A lethal strike pierced the beast. The predator fell before the sudden assault. Kim Prometheus stood his ground. The young goblin fought with a newfound courage. He wanted to prove his worth. Every action was a plea for recognition from his leader. The small warrior beamed with pride. He hoped his bravery was being witnessed. A flicker of hope shone in those eyes. The little guy believed he had finally succeeded. Kim Prometheus fought desperately. The young goblin unleashed his flames, but the enemy was far more organized than he had anticipated. The small warrior realized the danger. These creatures weren't just mindless beasts. They were coordinating their assault with lethal precision. He attempted one last strike. The fire flared, but it wasn't enough to stop the encroaching trap. In an instant, the predator struck. Kim Prometheus was ensnared and dragged into the darkness, helpless against the sticky webs. Panic erupted among the goblin scouts. Their comrade was being stolen away, leaving the group in a state of absolute terror. The goblin scouts watched in horror as their leader was snatched away. Despair gripped the group. Kim Prometheus felt the cold grip of the webs. He wondered if his comrades would survive this nightmare. The young goblin feared for the future of their home. Without a protector, the territory was vulnerable. A wave of selflessness washed over the small warrior. He wished to sacrifice himself to save the others from becoming prey. His resolve hardened. He knew that if he didn't act, the danger would only grow. A sudden realization struck. The threat was far from over, and more lives were at risk. Kim Prometheus rushed forward into the darkness. He ignored the predators lurking in the shadows. Tears streamed down the young goblin's face. His loyalty to his leader outweighed his own terror. The other scouts screamed in panic. They begged Kim to stop before he walked straight into a trap. A massive beast lunged from the canopy. The predator struck with lethal precision. Kim rushed through the storm, driven by a singular purpose. Tears of desperation fell as the young goblin refused to give up. Every fiber of his being screamed for the survival of his leader. A memory surfaced of the moment Oh Hyunmin had reached out to him. The bond they shared became a lifeline in the midst of chaos. A surge of raw power erupted from within. The young goblin refused to let death claim him. The gift of a name triggered a hidden potential. A dormant strength finally awakened. Blazing flames surged forth, granting the small warrior a divine shield. Kim Prometheus slammed his foot down, anchoring himself against the chaos. Driven by absolute loyalty, the young goblin launched himself forward to protect his lord. Kim Prometheus let out a desperate cry. He refused to let the darkness consume him. The young goblin threw himself forward with everything he had. Every fiber of his being was focused on one goal. He collided with the enemy in a violent impact. The force of the clash shook the very ground. Blazing flames erupted, incinerating everything in their path. The heat was absolute. Oh Hyunmin watched in shock. He could hardly believe the power radiating from the small creature. Kim Prometheus looked up with pure adoration. The young goblin felt an overwhelming sense of loyalty toward his leader. Oh Hyunmin stared back, stunned by the sudden display of power. He could barely process the intensity of the situation. The small creature clung to the man with fervor. However, the heat radiating from the goblin became unbearable. Kim Prometheus attempted to concentrate. The young goblin tried to suppress the raging fire within. A look of deep focus crossed the little one's face. He struggled to regain control over the flames. The intense heat suddenly vanished. Kim Prometheus managed to suppress the flames, leaving the young man surprised. The little goblin beamed with pride at his own accomplishment. Oh Hyunmin realized that giving the creature a name had unlocked a hidden potential. The protagonist tested the fire, discovering that the flames did not harm him. Oh Hyunmin felt a sudden wave of unease. Something was wrong. The young man scanned the surroundings, wondering where the creatures had gone. He questioned if the predators had truly retreated, unaware that he was being watched. A massive shadow loomed over the protagonist, closing in from the darkness. The realization hit him instantly. He was no longer the hunter, but the prey. A sudden presence emerged from the shadows. Oh Hyunmin questioned the nature of the creature before him. The beast let out a chilling screech. Its multiple eyes locked onto its target with predatory hunger. The young man reacted instinctively. He scrambled back, cursing the sudden ambush. Oh Hyunmin attempted to warn his allies. He ordered the group to prepare for a fight. The giant spider loomed over the protagonist. The predator had finally revealed its full, terrifying scale. Oh Hyunmin struggled to catch his breath. The intensity of the encounter had left him shaken. The young man stood his ground, gripping his weapon tightly as he surveyed the surroundings. A moment of silence followed. He tried to calm his racing heart after the chaos. The protagonist collapsed to the ground. He found himself surrounded by the small creatures he led. The goblins looked on in awe. To them, the battle was finally over. A firm grip signaled the end of the struggle. The danger had finally passed. The goblins erupted in joy. News of the victory spread quickly through the horde. Celebration broke out across the clearing. The creatures hailed Oh Hyunmin for driving away the predator. The protagonist felt a wave of confusion. Their excessive devotion was becoming unsettling. He could only stare in silence, wondering why they reacted this way. Oh Hyunmin questioned the logic of this strange land. The abundance of the harvest defied everything he knew about farming. A desperate cry broke through his thoughts. A goblin rushed toward him in a state of complete panic. The young man envisioned a future where these fruits could end world hunger. The potential for change was staggering. More creatures swarmed around him, their voices filled with an unsettling level of urgency. The scout was trembling, barely able to speak as he struggled to deliver his message. Oh Hyunmin snapped back to reality. The goblin scout was trembling in absolute terror. The young man tried to steady the creature. He needed clear information to understand the threat. Panic took over the scout. A warning was screamed, signaling the arrival of a dangerous predator. Oh Hyunmin felt a sudden shift in the air. Something menacing was lurking nearby. The group moved forward, only to find a gruesome sight. Victims were trapped in thick, sticky cocoons. Oh Hyunmin and the goblin stared in disbelief. A creature had finally been found. The beast looked like a wolf, trapped and struggling. This was the only survivor from the cocoons. Every other creature inside had perished. Oh Hyunmin praised the goblin for the quick report. He demanded the same efficiency in the future. The promise of a positive performance review left the goblin completely starstruck. A primal hunger took over the creature. It was time to feast. The monster could no longer restrain its savage instincts. With a sudden burst of speed, the beast lunged forward to claim its meal. Oh Hyunmin reacted in horror, desperate to stop the madness. The predator opened its maw wide, ready to swallow everything. Oh Hyunmin knelt before the creature, assessing the situation while his subordinates watched in curiosity. The beast remained a mystery, its primal nature barely contained. The young man recognized the creature's youth and saw a strategic opportunity. Taming the animal could provide a powerful advantage for his territory. However, the protagonist knew that any failure to bond would leave only one solution. Oh Hyunmin weighed the risks. While the pup could be a powerful asset, the young man would not hesitate to eliminate it if it proved uncontrollable. The creature stepped forward, its primal instinct still raw and unpredictable. A cold calculation crossed the protagonist's mind as he observed the beast. Suddenly, the pup's nature shifted, revealing a savage aggression that mirrored its predatory lineage. Kim Prometheus watched the exchange with wide-eyed wonder, completely unaware of the danger. Kim Prometheus stared in disbelief. He could not fathom the situation unfolding before him. The young goblin trembled. A mixture of fear and awe washed over the small creature. A sudden flash of light blinded everyone. The atmosphere shifted in an instant. Kim Prometheus felt the breath of the beast against his skin. The danger was palpable. Oh Hyunmin decided to take a gamble. He claimed the wild creature as a new member of the group. Oh Hyunmin made a bold decision. He introduced the wild creature as the newest member of the team. Kim Prometheus was completely bewildered. The young goblin could not process the absurdity of the situation. The unidentified wolf cub was officially recruited. Its new role was simple, the group's mascot. Meanwhile, the laborers had been busy. They gathered a massive haul of fruit from the forest. Oh Hyunmin looked over the results of the day. The collection was more than enough to sustain them. The goblin laborers returned with a massive haul. Their hard work ensured that the community would not suffer from hunger for a while. Excitement filled the air. The gatherers celebrated their success, knowing their efforts had paid off. Among the creatures, a deep reverence grew. They began to view their leader as a divine figure who provided for them. Oh Hyunmin watched the scene unfold. The young man realized the profound impact his leadership had on these desperate beings. He stood as a beacon of hope in the darkness. For the goblins, following him meant survival and stability. Oh Hyunmin walked among his subjects. The laborers greeted their leader with deep reverence. A devastating fire raged through the brush. It was a necessary destruction. The young man analyzed the danger. To stop the spiders, the forest had to burn. A strategic boundary was formed. With watchtowers, the community would finally be safe. A sudden voice broke his concentration. Someone was desperate for his attention. A young goblin approached with a humble offering. The small creature trembled with anticipation. Kim Prometheus noticed the arrival. The young man turned toward the noise. A warm smile greeted the little one. The fire wielder welcomed the timing of the visit. The gathered fruit spilled onto the ground. It was a tribute born of fear and respect. Overwhelmed by emotion, the goblin broke down. The small creature begged for mercy from his lord. Panic surged through the group. The small creature begged for forgiveness, terrified by a perceived mistake. The fear became contagious. The laborers scrambled to offer tributes, convinced that Oh Hyunmin was enraged. The young man stood bewildered. He tried to explain the situation, but his words were drowned out by the chaos. Desperation peaked as an elder goblin offered his own life. The creature pleaded for the safety of the children. Losing his patience, Oh Hyunmin finally snapped. He shouted at the idiots to stop their delusions. A sudden explosion of energy rocked the area. Oh Hyunmin's desperate plea for reason was met with sheer chaos. The aftermath left a heavy silence over the desolate landscape. Only the wind remained. A discarded object lay forgotten in the dirt. It was a remnant of the panic that had just unfolded. The young man stepped forward. His presence alone seemed to ground the surrounding turmoil. He walked past the silent guards. The group followed behind him, completely subdued by his authority. The subordinates were quick to praise Oh Hyunmin. They viewed his every action as a sign of divine leadership. Kim Prometheus desperately tried to prove his loyalty. The young goblin feared he had fallen out of favor. Oh Hyunmin remained distant. He focused on the resource in his hand, his mind already calculating the future. The protagonist analyzed the current population. He saw the faces of the many goblins who relied on him for survival. A grim reality set in. The current rate of consumption was unsustainable for the land. Oh Hyunmin realized the current consumption rate was unsustainable. The land could not regenerate fast enough to feed the growing population. A crisis was looming. The protagonist knew that expanding and restructuring their territory was the only way to survive. He examined the meager resources in his hand. The pressure to provide for his people weighed heavily on him. Oh Hyunmin vowed to prevent a famine at any cost. He looked upon his loyal subordinates with a determined gaze. A plan began to take shape. The young man prepared to map out a new future for his colony. Oh Hyunmin kept a close watch over his sleeping companions. He was determined to prevent any further tragedy. The young man mapped out the surrounding terrain. A strategic path had to be carved through the wilderness. He weighed the risks of venturing into unknown lands. Preparation was the only way to ensure their survival. Oh Hyunmin considered the limitations of his allies. The small stature of the goblins made them vulnerable in direct combat. A moment of quiet tenderness followed. The protagonist offered comfort to the creature resting beside him. Oh Hyunmin pondered the military weaknesses of his subjects. He needed a way to overcome the goblins' disadvantage in close combat. A strange material caught the young man's attention. He wondered if it was a spider web. The protagonist tested the substance. Its elasticity was far beyond anything he had encountered. Oh Hyunmin stretched the thread further. The material's properties were even more impressive than he first thought. The tension suddenly snapped. The unexpected recoil sent the wolf pup flying. Oh Hyunmin felt terrible. The accident had been completely unintentional. The wolf pup looked shaken, its primal instincts replaced by sheer confusion. A single strand of the elastic web remained, shimmering on the ground. The young man stared at the aftermath, his mind racing. He rushed forward to check on the creature, hoping the impact hadn't caused any real harm. Oh Hyunmin approached the wolf pup near the warmth of the fire. The young man reached down to examine a lingering strand of the web. He lifted the material, studying its properties with curiosity. The protagonist noticed a significant change in the texture of the fiber. A realization began to dawn on him as he questioned the cause of this transformation. Oh Hyunmin felt a sudden spark of intuition. Something about the situation didn't add up. The young man stepped closer to the campfire, glancing at the strange material. He gripped the fiber tightly, testing its strength and texture. A sharp realization hit him. The answer was right in front of his eyes. Oh Hyunmin smiled as he confirmed his theory. He had discovered a way to manipulate the web. Oh Hyunmin discovered a secret. By applying heat without burning the silk, the web lost its stickiness, but kept its strength. Kim Prometheus and the wolf pup watched in confusion. They couldn't fathom what their leader was planning. The young man displayed the modified fiber with a confident smile. The companions stared in awe, completely baffled by the strange material. Oh Hyunmin viewed this discovery as the foundation for a new project. Time passed quickly. A few days had gone by since the discovery. Oh Hyunmin stood before his subjects. The goblins gathered in anticipation. waiting for their leader. The young man placed his hand on a covered object. The moment of revelation had arrived. With a confident smile, Oh Hyunmin announced a new initiative to the crowd. Confusion spread among the goblins. They struggled to comprehend what this new project entailed. Oh Hyunmin unveiled the secret he had been preparing. Kim, Prometheus, and the wolf pup watched with curiosity. The young man revealed the result of his hard work. A simple tool was presented as a revolutionary weapon. The goblins were bewildered by the strange object and its origins. The goblins were bewildered. They whispered among themselves, questioning if the strange object was actually something edible. Oh Hyunmin had heard enough. He silenced the crowd with a sharp command, insisting that the tool was a weapon. The young man stepped forward to demonstrate. He called upon Kim Prometheus to assist with the trial. The loyal goblin obeyed instantly. He handed over the projectile with absolute devotion. With the crowd watching in anticipation, the protagonist prepared to launch the attack. Kim Prometheus focused his aim with absolute precision. The projectile flew through the air with immense speed. The stone shattered upon impact, exploding into several fragments. The goblins watched in sheer terror as the debris rained down around them. The creatures were convinced that the young man had unleashed a powerful spell. Oh Hyunmin denied any use of magic. The shock among the crowd was palpable. The young man revealed the true source of the destruction. It was a simple tool, yet devastating. He explained that this weapon changed everything. Distance was no longer an obstacle for their army. With a commanding voice, the protagonist addressed his followers. A new era of conquest was beginning. He urged the goblins to move forward. The time for hiding had ended. The prospect of expansion filled the goblins with dread. Memories of terrifying monsters resurfaced, haunting their thoughts. Fear gripped the small creatures. The thought of facing such horrors again was almost unbearable. Oh Hyunmin stepped forward, his presence commanding the attention of the trembling crowd. The protagonist reminded them of their darkest days. He spoke of the desperate measures and the innocent lives they had lost just to survive. He questioned if those days of starvation and sacrifice were still their only reality. The goblins looked upon their leader with a mixture of awe and guilt. They believed their past suffering was a result of their own failings. Oh Hyunmin stepped forward to correct them. He shifted the burden of responsibility from the individual to the collective. The young man raised his hand, commanding the absolute attention of the crowd. He made a bold promise to his followers. The days of starvation and desperate sacrifices were finally over. With a powerful voice, the protagonist called for volunteers. He offered them a chance to change their destiny through a daring expedition. Oh Hyunmin issued a bold challenge to his followers. He offered them a chance to rise as heroes and secure a prosperous future for their people. The goblins were stunned. The promise of stability and safety felt almost unbelievable. A wave of fervor swept through the crowd. One by one, the creatures began to respond. The desperation of the past transformed into a frantic desire to serve. They scrambled to prove their loyalty. The protagonist looked upon them with a satisfied smile. He had successfully captured their hearts and their absolute devotion. Oh Hyunmin expressed his gratitude to his followers. He had successfully ignited a spark of hope in their desperate hearts. The goblins responded with overwhelming fervor. Their loyalty had shifted from fear to absolute devotion. This was the man behind the miracle. Oh Hyunmin had once been a star in the corporate world, a prodigy of business and efficiency. In his previous life, the young man had conquered every challenge. No corporate project had ever been too difficult for his intellect. But now, he faced a challenge that no textbook could prepare him for. This was a project where the stakes were survival itself. Oh Hyunmin urged his companions forward. The journey was grueling, and exhaustion had begun to take its toll. The young man lamented his past habits. He realized that his corporate lifestyle had left him physically unprepared for such a trial. Every step felt like a battle. The protagonist struggled with the sudden demand on his frail body. Despite his own pain, Oh Hyunmin pushed the group to keep moving. He promised them a place to recover just a bit further. He checked on his loyal subordinates. Even in his state, the manager's instinct to lead and care for his team remained. Oh Hyunmin checked on his companions. Despite his own exhaustion, the leader's concern for his team remained. The young goblin and the wolf pup responded with enthusiasm. They were faring much better than their leader. A bitter realization hit the protagonist. His years of corporate life had left him physically frail compared to his subordinates. Kim Prometheus looked up with pure admiration. To the small creature, the man was an inspiration. The young man reflected on the group's dynamics. He had a loyal team, even if he was the weakest link physically. The wolf pup trotted along happily, carrying supplies for the group. Oh Hyunmin decided it was time to establish a new order before they continued. The protagonist began assigning names to his followers, starting with a fluffy title for the beast. He then turned his attention to the goblins, giving one a sweet-sounding name. Another subordinate received a similar nickname as the young man attempted to bond with them. Oh Hyunmin gathered his new followers to establish a stronger bond. The young man pondered the results, realizing that simple labels were not enough to trigger a true awakening. The wolf pup sought attention, prompting the protagonist to consider a proper title for the creature. Kim Prometheus quickly corrected the man, insisting that a corporate rank was not a real name. Oh Hyunmin admitted the mistake and promised to find a more fitting designation for the beast. Oh Hyunmin realized that a corporate title was not enough. The creature deserved a real name. The wolf pup responded with excitement. The young man found the task simple enough. He searched his memory for something fitting. A legendary beast from Norse mythology came to mind. The protagonist focused on the name of a world-devouring wolf. The beast reacted with pure joy, completely unaware of the fearsome legacy being bestowed upon it. The wolf pup beamed with pure, innocent joy. Oh Hyunmin looked at the creature with a mixture of curiosity and affection. The young man tried out a name, hoping it would fit the beast. Suddenly, a system notification appeared. The act of naming had been officially recognized. Oh Hyunmin froze in shock. The system had registered a name he hadn't intended to give. Oh Hyunmin was devastated. The system had completely ignored his choice and assigned a different name to the creature. The young man felt a wave of guilt. He truly wanted the beast to have a legendary title. Despite the frustration, a bond was forming. The small creature clung to its new master with absolute trust. The young goblin looked up with pure innocence, unaware of the naming drama. As the group continued their journey, Oh Hyunmin guided his loyal followers toward a distant goal. Kim Prometheus was completely clueless about the world around him. The concept of a river was entirely foreign to the young goblin. Oh Hyunmin took the opportunity to teach. He explained the nature of the flowing waters they sought. The protagonist described the natural cycle of the wild. Water brought fish, and fish inevitably attracted dangerous predators. A realization dawned on the young goblin. If food and water were present, it meant other people must live there too. Oh Hyunmin held the small creature's hand firmly. A silent bond of trust grew as they marched toward the unknown. Kim Prometheus looked up with pure admiration. To the young goblin, the man beside him was more than just a leader. Oh Hyunmin remained silent, his mind already racing ahead. He was calculating every possible move. The protagonist harbored a secret hope. Finding other people could be the key to returning to his own world. A flicker of longing crossed the man's face. The thought of home drove his every decision in this strange land. Despite the uncertainty of the journey, Oh Hyunmin kept the small creature close. Their bond grew stronger with every step. The goblin scouts panicked, frantically pointing toward a looming threat. A massive silhouette emerged from the blinding light, blocking their path. Oh Hyunmin froze, unable to comprehend the scale of the creature before him. The beast revealed a terrifying visage, radiating pure aggression. It was a monstrous bull, and its presence filled the horizon with dread. The goblin scouts trembled in terror. They looked to their leader for a way to survive. Oh Hyunmin felt the pressure mounting. A cold sweat broke as he realized the gravity of the situation. The monstrous bull let out a deafening roar. The beast was a wall of pure muscle and rage. The creature charged forward with devastating speed. The ground shook beneath its weight. Retreat was no longer an option. Oh Hyunmin knew they had to fight back immediately. Oh Hyunmin took charge of the chaos. He organized the goblins into tactical units to face the threat. The young man quickly prepared his ammunition. Every second counted in this desperate struggle. With a powerful strike, the protagonist created a diversion. He forced the beast to focus on him. Blood stained his clothes, but Oh Hyunmin didn't flinch. He taunted the creature to draw its aggression. The monstrous bull fell for the bait. Driven by rage, the beast locked its sights on the man. The slingshot unit sprang into action. They launched a coordinated barrage of projectiles. Oh Hyunmin shouted his orders. The ranged unit focused all their fire on the beast's most vulnerable point. The attack hit its mark. A rain of stones crashed against the creature. The monstrous bull recoiled in agony. The sudden onslaught left the beast disoriented and wounded. Oh Hyunmin watched the results with a grim smile. The strategic strike had successfully crippled the monster. Oh Hyunmin felt a surge of satisfaction. The tactical strike had landed perfectly. The beast's hide was riddled with wounds. The damage was severe. The monstrous bull recoiled, thrown back by the sheer force of the onslaught. A moment of silence followed as the dust settled. The protagonist's confidence vanished instantly. He realized the nightmare was far from over. Oh Hyunmin commanded the attack with absolute precision. The strategy was finally in motion. The slingshot unit unleashed a relentless barrage. Every shot was aimed to break the beast. A rain of projectiles tore through the air. The onslaught was overwhelming. The monstrous bull succumbed to the force of the strike. It seemed the battle was won, but as the dust cleared, a cold realization hit the protagonist. This was only the beginning of the nightmare.